Welcome to Getting Ghosted. This is an Intuitive Soul Collective podcast, and I'm your host, Allie Horner. Welcome back, everyone. We are here and we have got Sam over here and Eric and all of my guides. I do have some extra special guests here who are coming through from the other side to share some of their afterlife wisdom for you. Now today, I have my normal guides, but we have some guests that are even a surprise to me. I did not expect them to be coming through, had no inklings about it, but I do have some members of the feminine or people who were identified as the feminine when they were here. So we do have Princess Diana here, which is super fun. For those of you who were not familiar with me or my work way back before TikTok, Princess Diana was one of the first people that I ever channeled publicly. I remember the little live that I did. It was a Facebook live because we're talking like way back in the day. And she came through and talked, I want to say maybe, I don't even remember how long, but there were maybe 9 people watching and I was so nervous. I was like shaking because I was so nervous to be channeling her publicly. I also had not fully come out of the spiritual closet yet. So a lot of people that I was close to, my family and friends, did not know that I could channel to this degree yet. And I was like trying to put my work out there as spirit was guiding me to do. I was really being guided and led to do that, feeling compelled to do it. But at the same time, I was also really nervous about people in my personal life finding out that I could channel people from the other side. And then later, it turned out that it's all fine and good and all of that. So like people have kind of come around, but yes, so she was one of the first people that I've ever channeled and she loves to come through and I've noticed she's very comforting. She likes to come in and share not just stuff about her life, but things that she wants us to know in terms of guidance and support and help on earth. So I'm going to let her sort of take it away. And so she came in and she was kind of putting her hands up like there was crowds applauding her as she was coming in, and she put her hands up and she was sort of like, okay, thank you, like, thank you, but like a little bit not shy, but I got the sense of her being very proud of her own journey. And she said both spiritually and otherwise. And she winked at me. She's always a little bit like cheeky, which I always think is really fun too. Like kind of has this little bit of a sense of humor about her. And she's coming in and she's got a bunch of other female figures or people who were female figures that we would have been maybe somewhat familiar with and maybe not familiar with, but I get the feeling of if anyone has ever channeled or is aware of the Sophias, it's sort of a divine what we would call not just gender-wise feminine, but energetically feminine collective. And really, I would say that they don't represent what patriarchy calls feminine. So I just want to be clear on that because a lot of times when we hear the word feminine, we think the way that the patriarchy would define it as nurturing and soft and quiet and meek and mild. No, a lot of these women coming in were strong, clear, like very focused on the community, but also contemplative, decisive. And so she's coming in and she wants to share as well as them what it means for the feminine to be rising at this time. And like I said, I got this nudge to get on here and record a podcast episode. And I was like, I don't know what to talk about today. And I had this feeling of, they'll know the other side's going to guide me. This is how it goes. So I'm going to let them come in and talk. So she's sharing with me and the Sophias are around her. They're in this beautiful, luscious, like, I don't know how to describe this color, but it's beautiful. It's like mixes of purple and indigo and violet and like the deepest, reddest purple you can find. And then swaths of red. It's almost like, it's like if you were to see, it's almost like if you were to see jewels, but not as a rock, as a stream of color. I don't know how to describe this, but it's such a beautiful, vibrant energy. And it's got these really wonderful, sparkling, delicious, like diamond deep, rich tones to it. And it's infused with so much light and so much life force energy. It's really wonderful. It's giving me almost like I'm getting women and feminine representation from all cultures, from all thought systems, belief systems, religions, or cultures. Like I'm seeing I'm seeing Parvati, I believe is the name I'm getting through here. And then I'm also seeing angelic beings that we would identify as feminine, though they're more, and not necessarily one gender identity, though people see them as different genders here too, I think because of the way humans kind of have cultural conditioning around that. I'm also getting a lot of figures, again, like the Sophias, Mary Magdalene. It's very not just priestess energy, but wise. Like I feel like a lot of these people coming in are not just deities or goddesses or put on a pedestal in that sense. Some of them were practical leaders. And I'm getting like Marie Curie is coming in, and I'm seeing like there's female writers coming in, the Brontes. Like it's such an interesting mix of feminine energy that's being splashed in front of my vision and swirling and crowding in. And so I'm asking them kind of in my head, like, okay, so what is it about you guys? Like, what do you have in common? I mean, beyond what my mind might think, why are you all here together? And they're saying, we are here because we are really here as a collective, united. They're showing a fractal line, like a soul family. And then I'm getting Princess Diana saying, yes, we are indeed. And she's showing me how they're all connected through threads. And she said a touch of power, but also a little touch of maybe rebelliousness. And she said, meek and mild maybe was what some of us felt like we had to be, but there was a little bit of a rebellious streak, a little bit of a challenging of the status quo. And she said that power comes from the light inside all of us. The soul speaks through not just intention, but through action and through words. The soul, and she keeps saying, a lot of people on earth are feeling helpless and worn thin. She said, she's saying the words worn thin. And she's showing me like the thinnest cracker, where it's like if you were to dip it in a cup of tea or coffee or something, it would disintegrate instead of like being able to hold its shape. And she said that's how close so many people feel that they are to just being done. Like not being able to really like hold their space, hold their place, hold their energy. And she said, we want you to understand that some of this thinning out of the energy field is because your hearts are sacred. And she's saying, work through your heart, work through your divine energy. We want you as the feminine to understand that you are well resourced, but your resources will come first from the beyond, and then the soul will speak through you and to you and guide you in where you need to go, what you need to do, what you need to say, and to whom. And she said, if soul is too broad of a term, think about it like, what does my inner voice, my inner calling, my internal compass tell me to do? Where do I need to go right now? What is really right for me? And she said, this is the part of the larger shift that's happening, as we've talked about many times. And she said, but many people will need to hear over and over that it's that it's safe and it's okay to do this, that you are guided and that you are divinely supported by many of us. And she's showing the whole crowd of beings behind her. And this is like centuries upon centuries of women and people who really stood for something, and people who were creating things. And it may have been in really unique ways. And she's saying, we are here as guides to many of you, just because you may not think that we may not have been related. You may not have known us or known of us in your lifetime, but that doesn't mean that we are not guiding you, helping you, and supporting you. And she's saying, we really have a lot of trust and affinity in the human collective at this time. And many of us elected to come here to play these roles and play these parts, though we always had free will choice once we got here about what we might or might not do, and what we wanted to step into versus like she said, we all had choice once you get here. You might have intentions and things you want to work on as a soul. And she said, that's a lot of what happens with a soul blueprint is you have things that you want to accomplish and work on, but it's a larger collective agreement. There's collective agreement in terms of the entire planet and everything in it and on it, as well as the larger seen and unseen world around it. And there's also understanding of themes that are being worked through on individual levels, but they always mirror in the larger collective energy. They're always connected to the larger collective. It's kind of like those TikToks that you see, for those of you who are wondering, like where People will be commenting and they're like, I've never had an original thought. It's just like that, where it's like you see so much of your internal world mirrored through other people. And I really think that's part of what social media is supposed to be demonstrating for us, is almost like that we aren't actually really as alone or disconnected as we think. And she said, this is indeed the truth. And she's showing me how so many of the things that she wanted to convey from her spiritual experience and her spiritual side is that her soul had certain tasks that she wanted to perform on earth, but it was always not just about her. It was always about a larger group, a larger collective as well. And she said that's part and parcel of how the earthly world works. You're more connected than you think. And she's showing people being connected in thought and feeling and emotion without realizing it. And she said now on social media, you can see this. People will share feelings they're having. Has anyone noticed this in the energy? Is anyone having dreams about that or premonitions about this? And a whole bunch of people will say, yes, oh my gosh, I am. And what we're starting to understand is what is coming from spirit and soul and what is coming from the heart of the human collective. And she said, neither is right or wrong, but the heart of the human collective can tell you where the pulse of energy is in the moment and where energy is at in the moment. So it can help you with prediction. It can help you with understanding, where to go in the moment and what to do or choose in the moment and how to support yourself in the higher collective, the human collective, or the earthly collective in that moment. But the energy can shift on a dime, right? And she said, kind of like a flock of geese, like they can change direction. She's showing those big groups of birds as they migrate. A lot of people do videos of them around this time of year because it'll be these huge groups of birds, and all of a sudden they'll shift and take a turn in the wind, and you're like, oh my God, that entire group just seem to completely synchronize and like turn on a dime. And she said it can be like that with the human collective as well, but certain things can get into motion and it's difficult to stop that snowball effect, right? She said, now this is why we want you all to be very wise about where your decisions are coming from. Does it feel like it's coming from a core of light and truth? Does it feel like it's coming from a deeper knowing? That is when you're feeling and sensing soul or spirit trying to guide you. And she said, you can always trust spirit. Spirit is connected to your soul. Spirit knows your higher self. Spirit knows your spiritual self. And we're all connected to you, and we understand. And she said, we almost kind of understand more of what you and your group came here to experience, the themes you came here for, the larger collective purpose of what you're here to do and to be and to have, and how that all the different ways that might individually express based on free will. And she said, and we also understand those intentions and those higher intentions that humans can't really fully grasp or understand or put into words. And we can help you. We can help you with that. And we're really trying to help you all the time. Even the most skeptical people, the most closed people, we try to work with them. We whisper in their ear. We put a hand on their shoulder. We try to open their heart. We try to open their mind. We try to guide them. We give them little nudges and inklings, but she's showing that a lot of people still remain closed off. So they don't feel or see or hear that guidance, or if they do, they probably ignore it more. And she said, we can't interrupt free will, but we can try to help you in love and in guidance. Now, she's saying when things feel like there's a lot of emotion, stickiness, stagnancy, they're up and down, right? You might feel deep sadness, grief, guilt, anger, rage, passion, all these different things. That's the human collective. That's the human collective consciousness. And she's showing them almost as when you're connected with spirit, she's showing me the ocean. This is such an interesting analogy. They've showed me this for years. She said, imagine you're swimming in the ocean and a whole bunch of people are struggling and going underwater. And they're coming up and they're riding the waves, but they're underwater. Right, they keep going back under and then they have to come back up. And she said, when you are working and listening to your inner voice that comes from spirit, that's guided by soul, it feels lighter, brighter, and happier. And you seem to almost sit on top of everything. And you might ride the wave a little bit, but it's not going to have as much of an impact on you. So there can be ups and downs in that, but it's almost like you're staying on top of the water. And then imagine that there are people who are going up and down, bobbing underwater. They feel like they're underwater. And she said, that expression of oh, it's heavy, man. Or I just feel like I'm suffocating. I feel like I'm underwater. I can't think straight. I feel like I'm in a fog. I feel like I just can't get my head on straight. I'm scattered. That's when you're getting stuck in the human collective collective energy. And she said, and this frequency can also happen in the larger Earth's atmosphere. It's not just human. She said it's not just to air as human. There's also other things that can impact this. And she's showing the Earth and the Earth's processes, as well as seasonal changes, atmospheric and barometric changes. She said really sensitive people pick those things up like way before they hit. I was feeling kind of weird this week, and it turned out we were going to have really high wind days, and some of the winds, not quite here in Denver, but just a little bit west of here, were like hurricane force winds. So I was picking them up beforehand, and I was like, what is this feeling in my body? This is so weird. And it was like for a whole day beforehand. And she said, yeah, because you can sense those changes. And so she said, a lot of communities who are really connected to the land, and she said a lot of you would call them indigenous, but we would call them peoples of the earth. They understand these signals and they're very connected to the earth, so they sense these things. And the more that you're outdoors, the more you'll be able to discern, oh, that's some sort of atmospheric change coming before it's presenting itself physically just yet. Like the cloud, before the clouds are overhead, you can feel it coming. And she said, but some of this is human collective, and some of it is you're sensing things going on with the planet or the atmosphere. And she said, so when you're feeling those things, like if it's not feeling bright, light, still, calm, like it dawns on you, it's not from your intuition or your spiritual self. And she is saying these are all things that you can benefit from learning. And that's why we have this group of, she said, what would have been in this lifetime, or for many of you who need to hear this, the feminine. And she said, we want you to remember that when you are working with your internal compass, with your internal soul, the soul as it is connected to your body, and when you're bringing more and more of that light into your body, more of that life force energy will flow, and you will feel clearer and more able to handle and flow with what's changing and what's going on in the world. In fact, you'll feel like you're out ahead of things, like you're sitting on top of the energy instead of getting pulled under it. And she keeps saying, but to err is human, to err is human. And it's okay if you feel like you're underwater sometimes. And she said, this is something that it takes time, experience, and she's saying learning is okay. And she said, in my life, I often ignored my intuitions. I really struggled with hearing myself clearly because she's showing she would get caught in her emotions a lot. And she said, there's many beings on earth who get caught in these emotions and, or who remain hyper logical. They disconnect from their emotions, but really they're suppressing them. And so those emotions bubble up and take over, and change their thought processes. And she said, it's always a feeling first. So we want you to understand how to work with those feelings and emotions so that they're not ruling your lives. She said it's not to demonize the emotions, it's to learn what they're trying to say to you and tell you, and learning how to process them as energetic power and force so that you're not projecting emotions at people or letting them take over your thought processes or keep you stuck and small and scared. So there is more to this too. And I'm seeing more of these feminine group of guides stepping forward, and they want us to understand that they're here as guides and guardians for the human collective. It's not just for women or non-binary people or just men or anyone. They are here to help instill more of a knowing on earth. And they said there are many beings. There are also people that would have been known, across gender or non-binary, etc., in the larger spiritual collective, because once we're in spirit, we actually don't really associate with one gender anymore. Like the soul is just light. It is not just one form. In fact, once, the soul can have many, many, many lifetimes where it's had many expressions, many cultures, many races, many forms, many different belief systems, some completely different from one lifetime to the next. And so really makes you think about having compassion for all, because we never know what we've experienced in different lifetimes and who we've been or what role we've played in different lifetimes. And so, or what we've had to go through, unless you've done some past life regression, but even then. So they're showing me how everything is interconnected though, and how they want a lot of the human collective to really understand and embrace that as we go through these transformations and changes that are happening, there will be more light that infuses into the human form and into the body. And they said, actually, there's, humans already give off some light, especially at certain times. And there's been research and science around this, but they said people who are able to see clairvoyantly can see this. They can see it and it's often expressed as light or a subtle shimmer around the body. For some people, a glow, or sometimes it can be colors that seem to move and swirl or seem to be shifting and changing, or spots of color in the person's field. So they want us to understand that the more that this light infuses the earthly, the 3D world, what's going to happen is we might feel a little bit like unstructured, like we're having to go with the flow more because the structures and ways that our brains were working in order to create structure and strategy and step by step, and all of that in logical thinking is going to shift and change. And they said, you're already seeing this. We're already seeing this happening across the collective right now. But they want us to understand that this is part and parcel of the evolutionary processes, that there's nothing wrong with what's going on, even if they said it may be frustrating, and we understand that. But at this point in time, this is an important part of the evolutionary process. You're meant to be evolving and to have different ways of thinking and different brain structures. You're meant to have different energy centers opening, and you're meant to have more of your higher and broader awareness and sensitivities and extra senses come online. Now, this is going to happen. They're showing me it's going to come and go in waves. So like at certain points in time, people will have more of their senses heightened and brightened and overlapping, and then they'll feel dull again. And they said this is because, again, it's an evolutionary cycle. It's not supposed to be a switch that just flips on, because a lot of you will get too overwhelmed and overstimulated. The other piece of it is they want us to, they said, sit outdoors, like you can sit in the shade, but we want more of you getting a little bit more sunlight. They said many of you, you can put on a hat or something if you're concerned about cancer. Do what you need to do to be healthy. But they said a lot of you guys are not getting enough sunlight. You're not outdoors enough. And they said, we know we say this every time, but as your guides and teachers, we have to tell you the truth, and we have to be honest with you, and we are here to help you. And you do need to be outdoors more, as long as it's a safe day for it. I know in Colorado, we have ozone alert days and forest fires and stuff. So some days it's not the best idea to be outside. But we just have to work with what we can in terms of trying to get the air and the connection to nature, the connection to the earth, going out and listening to the breeze through the leaves and the trees, listening to the birds, feeling the rain on our skin, taking a deep breath as the rain hits the earth, and you can get that really beautiful smell from it, going out in the snow and feeling how still and quiet it is. They just keep showing so many little moments, and they said this will begin to help your physical senses. It will clear your minds. It will help you reconnect to they keep showing the nervous system, and they're like, it will help your body's nervous system and your neurological processes. So they said, do this in the best ways that you can for your health and safety at this time. Okay. And they said each of you knows what you need and what you can do and what you can't really do just yet. They're even showing more and more people moving to spaces where they can be around nature a little bit more. And they said as your sensitivities grow and your senses heighten and brighten and overlap, many of you are going to seek out nature more just naturally, because a lot of city life, suburban life will be too overstimulating and too demanding. It's also going to be really difficult to be around too much, like they're showing like concrete and stuff like that. Concrete, brick, pavement, loud noises, exhaust. They said you'll become more just too sensitive. It's going to be too much for the body. They want people to understand that this is part and parcel of it, that you're not really meant to be like fully isolated. It's not like that. Like you don't have to go live in a little cabin in the woods for the rest of your life, but you might have time periods where you're a little more sensitive. And they said this is also going to help your intuition come online and your deeper knowing and deeper calling really become clearer. Like you're not going to have as much struggle with it. And they said, because again, your world is very overstimulating. So sometimes as these processes happen, you may need to go to spaces that are a little bit quieter, that allow you to have a little bit more, a little bit less stimulation in order to have the clarity of mind and ease that you need. Now, the other piece they're showing me, because this awakening is really really hitting, and a lot of people have been like, oh my God, I'm having this spontaneous awakening like this month. And I'm like, I've been prepared for this for a long time. And so they want everyone to understand too, that as this all happens, as you hear from, loved ones and guides on the other side, don't be scared. They said, have no fear, because this really is a really wonderful time when we're going to see the potential for things to shift a lot more toward, growth, and a deeper anchoring needs to happen before we can grow. Like when you look at a seed that's planted beneath the soil, that seed starts growing those roots long before, we ever see the seed sprout above the soil, right? And then when we look at the roots have been growing for quite a while. Remember that this is how things often happen. We need to have that anchor, and we need to let things, take the time they need to take. Like that seed needs to have time to be planted beneath the soil and really get that nourishment and do what it needs to do there. And just because you may not be seeing this plant shooting out, you may not see the fruits of your labor, you may not see the changes you want to see just yet, it doesn't mean that nothing's happening. It doesn't mean that we're standing still or we're stagnant. So keep going. Keep going on your journey. And they said, but remember, you might need to have some different forms of anchoring at this time. So this may be a time period in which you're like, this is too much for me. I can't do this as much anymore. I'm seeing a lot of people really being pulled away from old things. And I talk about this over and over because I have helped so many people through these shifts and changes. But the more that this stuff happens, the more that what is not aligned to it will naturally fall away. And it's not just that it will remove itself from your life. It's that you might start to feel like, I just don't feel like I need to do this anymore. I don't feel like I need to be in this space or that place anymore, or in this role, or, in this, I feel like my schedule needs to change. What I need in my life is different. And it's going to start to come for a lot of you guys. And they keep saying, be not afraid, because what's going to happen is you're going to make space for new and brighter things to be coming forward. And as many of our strict systems and structures need to change, we're going to need all of our higher, downloads, our clearer knowing to come online, so that we start to download and create better systems and structures in the next decade, rather than recreating the old and ending up right back in the same frustrating pattern all over again. And that's a lot of what these generations are here to do. We are here to change. Every generation is here to make changes. And so it's a very interesting time, and what's unique about it is the larger change that is happening in terms of the spiritual senses and the shifts in frequency that we're seeing. And that's like a very physics thing. It's not like a hippy dippy woo woo, oh, your frequency, my frequency, we're not at the right, no, like I'm actually literally talking about like actual physics. So there is going to be more and more of that light infusing here. And when I talk about light, I'm talking about being able to see more than you normally can, being able to hear more than you normally can, being able to sense and feel more than you normally can. And that's okay. And I also want you guys to feel free to reach out to me or reach out to someone in your area, someone that you trust, that knows about these things, who can support you if you're going through these changes, because just again, it's a lot to go through it by yourself. So I really want you guys to get that support on the way. I'm asking them, just any like final words. They keep saying, there is the feminine rising, but it's going to be a very different type of feminine. It's more balanced, egalitarian. It's not a patriarchal definition of feminine. They're showing this in terms of leadership, but they said, again, it's going to take some time for those who want to come into certain levels of leadership. They said, we don't want you to take this as like there's going to be one leader here in this presidency or in that office or whatever. They said, please be mindful how you interpret these words. So, but we're going to see more and more changes. And I do feel like this is going to be over this next like decade. But they keep saying it's because it's not just feminine as in females. It's feminine as in people coming in who have different understandings of how they want to do things, more egalitarian, more compassion leading, more fruitfulness. And they said, but the collective has to be on board with it in order for those changes to happen, or the energy can shift and change again. They're also showing me that there is a lot more, because there's been so much contrast, there's a lot of opportunity, because they said, unfortunately, sometimes what happens is people have to see something really big of almost like kind of like a lot of people need push comes to shove before they take action or change anything or stand up for what they need to stand up for. They said often people they like to stay comfortable, nice and comfy. And so they can remain very passive until things get to push comes to shove and they have no choice, or until things impact them or people that they care about very dearly and directly. And so they said what's happening is that there's been a lot of contrast on Earth, and Earth is a world of contrast. That's part of being in this 3D space, is that there is contrast. So, black, white, up, down, right, left, inside out. Really think about all of it. They just keep showing me all the different things, like dry, wet, hard, soft. So there is a lot of contrast here. And because we're going through such times of high contrast, we're starting to understand what do we actually want to create and be and see in the world. And they said, let your hearts lead you, because love can be fierce and can be powerful and can be creative too. Love is not always meek and mild and passive and docile and, just nurturing. Sometimes nurturing is teaching your children how to hunt or forage. Sometimes nurturing is teaching your children how to stand up for what's right. Sometimes nurturing is, sometimes we have to give this understanding that the feminine can be so much more than just passive. It can be very fierce and very clear and very concise and very determined. And so we can almost take the binary, gender identifiers out of it. And so they're saying, this is what we want you guys to understand, is that there's going to be more coming as well. And there's going to be, we want more and more people to recognize the contrast has brought out more clarity of what people want and don't want, and more fierceness. And they keep saying, we are working with so many of you, and this is causing, in a sense, more of an awakening, because the contrast has been so high. So more and more people are like, we cannot possibly keep going on this way. And that causes a lot of that higher awakening or that connection to intuition to come forth, because when people get to the point where they're like, okay, we keep doing the same things over and over and it's just not working. Now what do we do? Almost like they're forced to think outside the box, and they're forced to stop thinking about doing things the way they used to. So therefore they have to change how they think about things in order to do things differently. That's sometimes when the intuition can come online, and when people actually start listening to it, is they almost have no other choice, or they get sick of the way they have been doing things. And so I just see they keep saying there is a lot of opportunity here. We don't want people to get discouraged. There is more going on than meets the eye, and you do have really powerful spiritual support on the other side. So I wanted to record this for you guys today. I didn't know that this is what was going to come through, but it's definitely there. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this message. If you have more questions for them, feel free to reach out, and I will see if I can channel some more and see who comes through. And I am so glad that you guys are here. I hope you have had a wonderful, wonderful holiday. And look forward to some new stuff coming out from us here soon. Make sure that you sign up for my newsletter, which is on my website, because you'll get the updates first on there, or join in the Patreon group. There is a free membership level as well, if you don't want to do any of the paid membership levels as well. So I hope that this was helpful for everyone, and go and have a wonderful, wonderful day.